Welcome to class PM. The previous class we have studied about oviparous and viviparous organisms, right? When we talk about oviparous, we know that these are usually developed when an egg is laid and that is hatched into a baby. How are these eggs developed into young ones? So let us learn about young ones into adults. The topic we are going to learn now is young ones into adults. We have seen that there are many oviparous organisms which lay eggs, and these eggs will take time to develop into a baby. You see that the new individuals which are produced by hatching eggs take time to develop into an adult. Like when you talk about the life cycle of silkworm, you all know how the silkworm produces silk, right? And it has a life cycle too, right? When you talk about this life cycle of silkworm, let us say how is the silkworm developed? From the egg stage, right? The silkworm lays eggs which develop into larva, say like caterpillar, and this larva which is present, it develops into an adult. Larva develops into pupa, and pupa will develop into adult, right? So these are the different stages in case of oviparous. When they lay eggs, the egg hatches and develops into a new individual, but they take time to develop into a proper adult. Like see, the eggs which are produced by the silkworm will develop into a larva called as caterpillar stage, and then they develop into pupa. Then pupa is been surrounded or enclosed within the shell, which are called as cocoons. Right from the cocoon, they develop into adult moth. When you talk about the life cycle of frog, like in case of frog, we know that this is also again oviparous. They lay eggs. The external fertilization takes place. So the egg which is laid will develop into larva. That is nothing but tadpole larva. There is a specific name for this larva in case of frog, that is called as tadpole larva, and then further it develops into adult. So you see that there are various stages from the stage of egg till the development of an adult, right? So these are the various life cycles of various oviparous animals where they start their life with the egg. Further they undergo changes. So when you talk about the frog, it begins its life as an egg, where the eggs are released into the water and there is a jelly kind of substance which keeps protecting the eggs. The sperms, they swim in water and get deposited onto the eggs, and one of the sperm will get fertilized with the egg of this frog, and then slowly the fertilization results in the formation of a zygote, where this zygote which is formed will develop into a tadpole larva, where this tadpole larva initially it has a small tail, but the next later stages you see that the tadpole larva has a tail, right, which will help the larva to swim in water, because we know that these fish are amphibian. They can live in water and they can live on the land also, but please remember the process of reproduction occurs in water. That means they lay eggs in water only. That means the reproduction takes place in water. They don't reproduce on land, right? So if they cannot swim in the water, definitely they become the predators, right? So this tadpole larva will have a tail, where this tail will help in movement of the frog from one place to the other place for survival. In the same way, you see that once it is completely developed into an adult, tail disappears and you see that adult frog which can slowly jump, okay, and swim inside the water. So these are the different stages you see in the development of organism from a larval egg stage to an adult stage. So the number of changes which take place during the process of development of an individual into a fully grown adult is said to be metamorphosis. So the transformation of larva into a fully grown adult which undergoes drastic changes during this period is said to be metamorphosis, and we humans, we do not undergo metamorphosis because we have all the organs as of our parents right from the day one. That is, right from the birth you have all the organs like your heart, your kidneys, your liver, your brain, everything. But whereas in case of these animals, they need to develop the organs gradually as they grow up into an adult. That's the reason you see there are drastic changes or chain of changes which are taking place during the conversion of a larval stage into an adult, and this process is said to be metamorphosis. So we have seen the process of metamorphosis, where we have seen that there are different changes which take place right from the stage of larva until the formation of an adult, right? Now we have learned many things about sexual reproduction. As I've told you, unlike plants, even animals also undergo two different modes of reproduction, like asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. We have learnt till now about the sexual reproduction in case of animals, right, and human beings. Now let us talk about asexual reproduction. As I've told you, in case of asexual reproduction, only one parent is involved. Only one parent is involved. There is no transfer of characteristic features from male and female, because they don't have male and female parents. So only one parent is involved all the time, which is responsible for the continuation of race. So now let us talk about aquatic organisms like aquatic animals like amoeba, which is a microscopic hydra, right? So now let us talk about the reproduction in case of hydra. So if you have seen hydra under the microscope, the body of the hydra resembles cylindrical in structure, almost like cylindrical, okay, which ends up with tentacles. I can just show you the way they resemble. So the body of the hydra is almost cylindrical, which have branched structures which protrude out on the body are said to be tentacles. What are these called? Tentacles. So these tentacles which are present, they help in locomotion. So when we are talking about the process of asexual reproduction, this is a single parent. It doesn't have any male or female discrimination. So usually the reproduction starts case of hydra as an outgrowth. So the outgrowth which is developed on the surface of the body, gradually you see that it starts developing into hydra with tentacles, and once the hydra is completely developed, you see that this outgrowth which is present, it will develop into a full-fledged body of a hydra. So once the outgrowth which is present on the parent is developed into an adult, it will get detached and fall onto the substratum. That means fall onto the substratum means what? Surface, and this will develop into a new hydra or new individual. So this is how you can see the method of an asexual reproduction taking place in case of hydra. So when we talk about amoeba, we are very much familiar about amoeba because this amoeba belongs to protozoa family, and we know that this is a unicellular microscopic organism, right? So we know that there is no specific structure in case of amoeba. Do we have any specific structure for amoeba? Definitely not. It is shapeless, or you can say that it is irregular. We know that it has nucleus in it. So how does the process of reproduction takes place in amoeba? Amoeba also undergoes a process of asexual reproduction where the nucleus which is present in the amoeba will start stretching. Okay, the nucleus which is present in amoeba will start stretching or elongating, and when you see this elongated structure of the nucleus, you feel that it has divided into two nuclei or dividing nucleus. You can call this as dividing nucleus. So this is the nucleus. Now during the process of reproduction, the nucleus which is present, it will elongate, stretch itself and divide. The nucleus which has stretched, it will divide the body of the amoeba into two equal parts, and the nucleus which is present, it gets divided into individual nuclei into the body of amoeba. Later, this amoeba which is present, it will develop into two new individuals with the characteristic features of the parent, right? They resemble the parent. You see, when you look at this amoeba, they resemble the parent. They are not formed out of any new individual. So they resemble the parent and they are exact Xerox copies of the parent, right? And this process of fertilization where you see there is a binary fission taking place. That means binary means the nucleus divides twice. That means there is a division of nucleus twice, which will result in the formation of offspring. So from one parent, there are two offsprings which are produced. In case of hydra, the outgrowth is formed which will develop into a new individual, and this process is said to be budding. If you remember, in case of yeast also we have learnt about the process of budding, right? So this process of asexual reproduction in case of hydra is said to be budding, and in case of amoeba it is said to be binary fission. Binary, bi means two, that means there is a fission which takes place twice in the nucleus of the amoeba, which will divide the body of the parent into two individuals with two different distinct nuclei, which further develop into daughter cells. So this is the process of asexual reproduction that is taking place in case of amoeba. So apart from this binary fission and budding, we also have one more method of reproduction which is said to be cloning. So now you might have a question, what is cloning? What happens during the process of cloning? Right, cloning is producing exact copy of the cell or any living organism or any part of the living organism. I've told you, in case of multicellular organisms like sheep, cow, buffaloes or humans, it is difficult to produce exact Xerox copy of the parent as of unicellular organisms. We have seen amoeba, right? But the scientists worked on this and introduced a method called cloning where they can produce exact copy of the cell or any other living part of the cell. So for this, to prove this experimentally that cloning is possible to produce exact copy of the cell, the scientists worked on it and they proved it practically by selecting two different mammals which are like fin dorsate sheep and black-faced eve. So what did they do is, so during this process of cloning, they have collected a cell from the mammary gland of the fin and one egg from the Scottish black-faced eve. So after they have collected, they have removed the nucleus from the egg and they have introduced the cell which has been collected from the fin dorsate female, that is mammary gland cell, and they have induced into this. After they have induced, they have seen that the egg which was produced by this fin dorsate was induced into the Scottish black-faced eve, which started developing normal sexual methods and reproduce its own breed, and unfortunately it died in the year of 2003. And you have seen that, and this cloning baby which was been produced by this scientist was named as Dolly. Later on, the Dolly had several generations where it has reproduced normal sexual methods, but after few years it died in the year of 2003 due to some lung disease. So the individuals which are usually produced by the method of cloning, they die before they give birth or they die after they give birth. They don't retain, they don't have the good span of life as of the individuals which are normal sexually produced, right? So this is a method of cloning, and usually remember, the babies which are brought up through cloning have severe abnormalities. So that's the reason they die. They cannot be retained or they don't sustain.